Well, good morning. Okay, it's time for a couple truth bombs. You guys ready for a couple truth bombs? So the New York Times ran an article this past weekend, fear-mongering and peddling panic and fear about Donald Trump's tariffs. And I had to kind of laugh when I read it. They're saying things like, oh my gosh, Donald Trump's tariffs, are really going to hurt the American family. You might here's some tips on how to survive through Donald Trump's evil tariff plan. You might have to buy frozen vegetables instead of fresh produce, or your guacamole might be really expensive. You might have to make it from peas instead of avocados. Here's my question to the New York Times and every other fucking elite in this country. What do you think the American family's been living on the past 4 to 8 years? Here's the best part of it. The people who own these magazines and the top 10% that own 80% of the fucking stock market that's worried about their 401ks right now, most Americans don't even have 401ks. Most Americans don't even have homes. Most Americans can't even afford housing or rent, at that matter. Even the housing people that own housing watch their interest rates go from 3% to 8 to 10% overnight in the last 4 years when the Democrat Party gave us inflation so high that it hit a 50-year high inflation. Most Americans can't afford shit, and they haven't been able to afford shit in the past 4 to 8 years. But now you're going to listen to the top earners, the elite in this country, bow to us and go, this is so afraid. You must be so afraid. This is going to be so bad, these tariffs. Meanwhile, most Americans aren't sitting in the top 10% of this country. Those Americans can't even afford health insurance. And then when those same Americans who try to get help from government plans are told they make too much money, while those same Americans watch 10 million people get allowed across this border and get handed all of that for free. Free housing, free medical, free clothing, free cell phones, free food, free EBT cards, and free cash payments off the backs of us, the American taxpayer, right? Meanwhile, the American family is going without. So yeah, New York Times, I hate to tell you this, but most family members had to go down to one car. The top 10%, the elite in this country, want to fear and peddle and, oh my God, scare, be afraid, oh, Donald Trump's tariffs are going to, oh my God. Or Donald Trump's tariffs is going to actually bring back hopefully, one of the biggest economic booms this country's ever going to see. And I hope it happens. I hope that happens so much. But you know the worst part that I hope that it didn't happen? Because those top 10% that are trying to fearmonger you right now about Donald Trump's tariff plans are going to become even more wealthier than they already are. That's the worst part of it. But go ahead, New York Times is sitting here trying to tell us, like, you're going to be so afraid, these tariff plans, oh my gosh, the American family's going to suffer. What the fuck do you think we've been doing? You think my kid can afford a fucking college apartment right now? You think he can afford to buy a home? That's a pipe dream at best at this point. Most Americans in homes down here in the South couldn't even afford property insurance, couldn't afford housing insurance. So they had to let their insurance lapse. And when the storms came in and they wiped out their homes, then they were forced to sell their homes and what was left of them because they couldn't afford to fix their homes, because they couldn't afford property insurance. Yeah, it's the top 10% in this country that own 80% of that stock market that are crying about their 401ks. Most Americans don't have 401ks. Hell, they don't even have savings accounts. And if they did have saving accounts during Donald Trump's first term, when people were making a lot of money, they slowly watched that dwindle away under Joe Biden and the Democrats, giving us that 50-year high inflation. So no, they stood up on election day and they said, well, you know what? The way this country is going, we're not going to be able to go any much further. Our deficit is hitting astronomical levels. So we need something to shake this up. We need something to take away from the elites. And yes, Donald Trump is part of those elites. Absolutely part of those elites. But we have watched bureaucrats and politicians sit on their soapboxes and sell all of our manufacturing overseas. We've watched entire towns close down and people hit the unemployment line when those same bureaucrats sold our industries overseas for their own profit and gains. That's right, entire towns. Detroit closed down. Unemployment soared. Just maybe Donald Trump throwing a fucking wrench into that stock market and making these countries pay their fair fucking share, because they haven't been paying their fair share. They've been making manufacturing off of slave markets, which once the left used to absolutely hate, but now they're all for it apparently. How dare you expect China to pay their fucking fair share? It's amazing to me that the top percent in this country want to peddle fear and panic about Donald Trump's tariff plans. Meanwhile, those same countries have been tariffing the shit out of us for years. America has been a fucking doormat for these other countries. And finally, Donald Trump throws a wrench in that plan, and the top 10% that told you the last 4 years Joe Biden was doing great, top of his game, that allowed 10 million people to walk in across this border, are trying to peddle fear to you. Like, you're not going to be able to afford to live. Here's a fucking news flash for all you top 10s out there that are crying about your 401ks. And yes, I have them too. My husband's retirement plan and pension plan is wrapped up in it. And if I'm not worried about it, you shouldn't be either. Because most of the people in this country don't have that. They don't have retirement accounts. They don't have 401ks. I'm one of the few that's blessed to have it. And I'm not worried about it. You want to know why I'm not worried about it? Because this is exactly what the fuck I voted for. I'm sick and tired of the top 10% in this country getting everything fucking handed to them while the rest of us suffer. We're the middle class in this country. We're the backbone of this country. And when the middle class was screaming the last 4 years, look, we can't afford fucking shit, something big needed to happen. And what you're seeing right now is that big something to happen. And this is why we voted for Donald Trump. We are sick and tired of the top bureaucrats in this country selling our country out to make their own wives and their own pocketbooks fatter. Got news for you. This is exactly what we voted for. And we understand it's going to pinch. We understand it's going to hurt. But we got faith in the end game. In the end game, sorry to the top elite in this country, I know it's going to hurt more for you than it's going to hurt for us. But you know what? We've been hurting a long fucking time. And that's a fucking truth to you. Okay? The top 10% own 80% of that stock market. But they want you to peddle and be afraid. Be afraid! Be afraid! Here's the news for you top 10 people out there. We've already been pinching pennies the last 5 to 10 years, thanks to politicians in Washington. These politicians don't give a shit about you, and I've been telling you that since it's my first account on this app. They care about themselves, and they will tell you what you want to hear, and while enriching themselves and selling our manufacturing overseas to make it cheaper for them so they make more money. Donald Trump throwing these tariffs and throwing a wrench into the stock market is going to do one of two things. One, it's going to crash it, or two, we're about to see the biggest economic boom this country has ever seen. And knowing Donald Trump's track record, reading The Art of the Deal, I'm going to go with the latter. It's going to take something really big and really serious to shock this system and get it back working again for the American people. Stop selling our bullshit overseas and start making American-made shit by American-made workers. So while the New York Times and the top 10% fearmonger you're going to have to be pinching pennies. We already are pinching pennies. And that's why we voted for Donald Trump. Because we're sick and tired of the top 10% in this country living the big fucking life. All you politicians in your 10 and 15 houses and your big cars and your big pocketbooks being worth millions of dollars on a public servant salary. Yeah, America stood up on election day and said they were done with that bullshit. So yeah, sorry New York Times, we're already pinching pennies out here. There's not a damn thing that you're going to peddle at this point that's going to scare us. I'm all for it, Donald Trump. Throw the fucking wrench in the whole system and burn it to the ground. Maybe then the bureaucrats will start paying attention. Good talk.